What happens when a beloved television icon walks onto a morning talk show expecting a friendly chat, only to be blindsided by a host with an agenda? In just 27 seconds of questioning, what started as polite conversation devolved into one of the most explosive confrontations ever witnessed on daytime television. Jeremy Clarkson arrived at the studio that morning like he had done countless times before. The cameras were rolling. The audience was settled in their seats. And Lorraine Kelly sat behind her desk with that familiar smile plastered across her face. Beside her sat two other panelists, Marcus Thompson, a food critic known for his sharp tongue, and Sarah Bennett, a lifestyle blogger who had made a career out of controversial opinions. The interview began innocently enough. Lorraine welcomed Jeremy with her usual chirpy demeanor, gesturing for him to take his seat on the cream-colored sofa opposite the panel. "Jeremy, wonderful to have you here," Lorraine began, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We have so much to discuss." "Happy to be here," Jeremy replied, settling into his seat with an easy confidence. He had been doing television for decades. This should have been just another morning chat. "So," Lorraine continued, leaning forward with an expression that immediately put Jeremy on edge, "let us talk about your recent comments about electric cars. Some people are saying you are completely out of touch with reality." The shift in tone was immediate and jarring. Jeremy's eyebrow raised slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Well, I simply said that the infrastructure is not quite ready for a complete transition. That is hardly controversial," Jeremy explained calmly. Marcus jumped in before Jeremy could finish. "Not ready? Or are you just afraid of change? It seems like you are clinging to the past because you cannot handle progress." Jeremy turned to face Marcus, his expression remaining neutral. "I am all for progress, mate. I just think we need to be realistic about the challenges." "Realistic," Sarah scoffed, shaking her head dramatically. "That is just code for stubborn and unwilling to adapt. You have been saying the same things for years." Lorraine nodded along enthusiastically, clearly encouraging her panelists to pile on. "You see, Jeremy, this is exactly what people are tired of. This resistance to change. This constant negativity." "I am not being negative," Jeremy said, his voice still measured, but with a slight edge creeping in. "I am being practical. There is a difference." "Is there, though?" Lorraine shot back, her smile never wavering, even as her words grew sharper. "Because from where I am sitting, it just sounds like you are making excuses to justify your outdated views," the audience murmured uncomfortably. This was not the lighthearted morning television they had signed up for. "Outdated views," Jeremy repeated, letting the words hang in the air. "You keep saying that word. What exactly makes my views outdated? The fact that I understand how power grids work? The fact that I know how long it takes to build charging infrastructure?" Lorraine waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, do not try to lecture us on infrastructure. We are not idiots, Jeremy." "I never said you were," Jeremy replied evenly. "But you seem to think I am." Sarah leaned forward, her expression dripping with condescension. "Nobody thinks you are an idiot, Jeremy. We just think you are stuck in your ways, unable to see the bigger picture." "The bigger picture," Jeremy said slowly. "And what bigger picture am I missing exactly?" "The climate crisis, for starters," Marcus interjected. "The urgency of the situation. The fact that we do not have time for your nitpicking about infrastructure." Jeremy's expression hardened. "Nitpicking? You think pointing out legitimate logistical challenges is nitpicking? When those challenges are used as excuses to delay action, yes," Lorraine said smugly. "It is classic deflection. Classic avoidance." "Avoidance of what?" Jeremy demanded. "I am not avoiding anything. I am trying to have an honest conversation about the practicalities of a massive transition. But apparently, that makes me the bad guy." Jeremy straightened in his seat. "Lorraine, I came here to have a conversation, not to be ambushed by someone who clearly has already made up their mind about what I think." Ambushed? Lorraine laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Do not be so dramatic, Jeremy. We are just asking you questions. Or can you not handle a little bit of scrutiny? I can handle scrutiny just fine, Jeremy replied, his patience visibly thinning. What I cannot handle is being invited onto a show under false pretenses only to be talked down to. Marcus leaned back in his chair with a smug expression. Maybe if you had better opinions, you would not feel so attacked. Better opinions, Jeremy repeated slowly, turning to face Marcus directly. You mean opinions that agree with yours? Is that what counts as better now? Sarah interjected with a dismissive wave of her hand. Oh, here we go. The persecution complex. Classic. I do not have a persecution complex, Jeremy said firmly, but I do recognize when I am being set up. Lorraine cut in, her voice taking on a condescending tone that made several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Jeremy, you really need to learn to take criticism. This is what happens when you put yourself out there. People are going to disagree with you. There is a difference between disagreement and disrespect, Jeremy countered, his voice rising slightly for the first time. And right now, what I am experiencing is the latter. Disrespect? Lorraine's eyes widened in mock surprise. We are being perfectly civil. Now, just because we do not agree with your frankly outdated worldview does not mean we are being disrespectful. Civil, Jeremy said, his voice rising with disbelief. You have called my views outdated at least 5 times in the last few minutes. You have questioned my understanding of basic facts. Your panelists have openly mocked everything I have said. And you call that civil? Marcus snorted. If you cannot take a little criticism, maybe you are in the wrong business. A little criticism? Jeremy turned to face him directly. You have not offered criticism. You have offered insults. There is a monumental difference between the two. Oh, here we go, Sarah chimed in, rolling her eyes theatrically. The victim routine. How predictable. I am not playing victim, Jeremy said firmly. I am calling out unacceptable behavior. If that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps you should examine why. Lorraine let out an exasperated sigh. Jeremy, you are being far too sensitive about this. We are journalists. We ask tough questions. That is our job. Tough questions, Jeremy repeated, shaking his head. Is that what you think these are? Because I have been asked tough questions before, Lorraine. Tough questions are challenging, but fair. What you are doing is neither. Give me an example, Lorraine challenged, crossing her arms. Give me one example of how we have been unfair. One example? Jeremy said incredulously. How about every single question you have asked? Let me walk you through it. You started by saying people think I am out of touch. Not asking if I am out of touch, but stating it as fact. Then, Marcus immediately jumped in, calling me afraid of change. Sarah accused me of using coded language. Every single interaction has been designed to put me on the defensive. Maybe you are on the defensive because your positions are indefensible, Marcus suggested with a smirk. Jeremy's jaw clenched. My positions are perfectly defensible when I am given the chance to actually defend them. But that requires you to stop interrupting me long enough to hear what I am actually saying. We have been listening, Sarah protested. No, Jeremy said sharply. You have been waiting for your turn to speak. That is not the same thing as listening. Outdated worldview, Jeremy repeated, his jaw tightening. You keep using words like that. Outdated, out of touch, as if having a different perspective automatically makes someone obsolete. Marcus jumped back in, clearly enjoying himself. Well, if the shoe fits, you cannot expect to keep spouting the same old rhetoric and not get called out for it. What rhetoric exactly? Jeremy demanded, his voice growing louder. What have I said that is so offensive? That we need better charging infrastructure? That the power grid needs upgrading? These are facts, not opinions. See, that is your problem, Sarah said with a condescending smile. You present your opinions as facts, and then get upset when people challenge you. Jeremy laughed, but it was a sharp, humorless sound. I am getting upset because I am being treated like I am some sort of dinosaur who cannot possibly understand the modern world. It is patronizing, and it is insulting. Lorraine leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. Well, maybe if you opened your mind a little, people would not feel the need to educate you. Educate me? Jeremy's voice rose another notch. Is that what you think you are doing? Educating me? Someone needs to, Marcus muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Jeremy turned to him sharply. And you think you are qualified for that job, do you? A food critic who spends his days writing about restaurants suddenly thinks he is an expert on automotive engineering and infrastructure planning? Marcus's smug expression faltered slightly. I know enough to recognize when someone is being deliberately obtuse. Deliberately obtuse, Jeremy said, shaking his head. The insults just keep coming. Oh, do they not? Lorraine raised her voice to regain control of the conversation. Jeremy, you are being overly sensitive. We are just having a discussion. This is not a discussion, Jeremy said firmly. A discussion involves mutual respect and an exchange of ideas. This is a pile-on. This is three people who have clearly coordinated to make me look foolish. No one is making you look foolish, Sarah said sweetly. You are doing that all by yourself. The audience gasped audibly at that. Even by the standards of confrontational television, that was a direct and personal attack. Jeremy stared at Sarah for a long moment, then turned his gaze to Lorraine. You invited me here. You asked me to come on your show. And this is how you treat your guests? Lorraine shrugged, her smile never faltering. I treat my guests with the respect they deserve. If you feel disrespected, perhaps you should examine why that is. Oh, I know exactly why that is, Jeremy said, his voice steady but cold. It is because you three decided, before I even walked through that door, that you were going to make an example of me. That you were going to use me as a punching bag to score points with whatever audience you think cares about this. That's absurd, Lorraine said dismissively. You are being paranoid. Am I? Jeremy challenged. Because from where I am sitting, every question has been loaded, every response has been met with derision, and every attempt I have made to explain my position has been shut down or mocked. Marcus rolled his eyes dramatically. Oh, please. You are just upset because for once in your life, someone is not kissing your feet and telling you how brilliant you are. Jeremy's eyes flashed. I do not need anyone to kiss my feet. What I need is basic courtesy. What I need is to be treated like a human being, rather than a target. You are being treated like a guest on a talk show, Lorraine said sharply. If you cannot handle that, maybe you should not be doing television anymore. The words hung in the air like a bomb. The audience had gone completely silent. Even Marcus and Sarah looked slightly taken aback by how far Lorraine had just pushed things. Jeremy stood up slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. You know what, Lorraine? You are absolutely right. I should not be doing television anymore. At least not this kind of television. Not the kind where the host thinks it is acceptable to invite someone on under the guise of a friendly interview, only to ambush them with coordinated attacks. Sit down, Jeremy, Lorraine said, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. You are making a scene. I am making a scene, Jeremy said incredulously. I am making a scene? Mate, you have spent the last several minutes insulting me, questioning my intelligence, and treating me like I am some sort of relic that needs to be put in a museum. And I am the one making a scene? You are overreacting, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction now. Am I? Jeremy challenged. Tell me, Marcus, if someone invited you onto a show and then spent the entire time telling you that your opinions are worthless, that you are stuck in the past, that you cannot handle progress, would you just sit there and take it? Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came out. That is what I thought, Jeremy said. It is easy to dish it out, is it not? Not so easy when someone actually pushes back. Sarah tried to interject. We were not saying your opinions are worthless. Then what were you saying? Jeremy demanded. Please enlighten me, because it certainly sounded like you were saying my opinions are worthless, outdated, irrelevant, stubborn, afraid of change. Those were all words used to describe me and my views in the last 10 minutes. So if that is not calling my opinions worthless, what would you call it? The three panelists exchanged uncomfortable glances. The audience had gone completely silent, sensing that something significant was happening. We were just asking questions, Sarah said weakly. No, Jeremy said firmly, pointing at her. You were not asking questions. You were making statements disguised as questions. There is a difference. A question implies you actually want to hear the answer. You three had no interest in hearing anything I had to say. You just wanted to tear me down. Lorraine stood up as well, trying to regain control of the situation. Jeremy, you are overreacting. This is what happens on talk shows. We debate. We challenge each other. There is a difference between challenge and cruelty, Jeremy said, his voice cutting through her attempts at justification. And what you have done here today crosses that line. Marcus tried one more jab. Maybe you are just too fragile to handle real conversation. Jeremy turned to him slowly. Fragile? You think I am fragile? I have been doing this job longer than you have been alive, probably. I have faced actual criticism from actual experts in actual debates. What I have not done is sit here and let three people gang up on me for entertainment. No one is ganging up on you, Lorraine insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. Really? Jeremy said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. So it is just a coincidence that all three of you have been attacking me from the moment I sat down? It is just a coincidence that every single thing I have said has been met with mockery and derision? The silence that followed was deafening. Even the cameras seemed to be holding their breath. Lorraine tried to salvage the situation. Jeremy, I think you are misinterpreting our intentions. I am not misinterpreting anything, Jeremy said coldly. I know exactly what your intentions were. You wanted to create a viral moment. You wanted to be the person who took down Jeremy Clarkson. You wanted the clicks and the shares and the attention. That is not true, Lorraine protested, but her face had flushed red. Is it not? Jeremy challenged. Then explain to me why every question was designed to make me look bad. Explain to me why your panelists were given free rein to insult me. Explain to me why you have shown absolutely no interest in actually hearing what I have to say. Marcus and Sarah both looked uncomfortable now, avoiding eye contact with Jeremy. We were just doing our jobs, Marcus mumbled. Your job, Jeremy said, his voice filled with contempt, is to be a food critic. Your job is to write about restaurants and recipes. Your job is not to sit here and question my intelligence or my relevance. Sarah tried to interject. We all have opinions about more than just our specific fields. Having opinions is fine, Jeremy said. Using those opinions as weapons to attack someone is not. There is a difference between expressing a viewpoint and being deliberately cruel. Lorraine stepped forward, trying to physically block Jeremy's path. You cannot just walk out in the middle of a live show. Watch me, Jeremy said simply. This is completely unprofessional, Lorraine hissed. Jeremy laughed, a genuine laugh this time. Unprofessional? You want to talk to me about professionalism? After what just happened? After you invited me here and then set me up to be humiliated? No one was trying to humiliate you, Lorraine said, but even she did not sound convinced by her own words anymore. Every question you asked was designed to make me look foolish, Jeremy said, counting on his fingers. Every response I gave was met with mockery. Every attempt I made to explain myself was interrupted or dismissed. And now, you have the audacity to talk to me about professionalism. The audience had started murmuring among themselves, clearly uncomfortable with what they were witnessing. You are twisting things, Lorraine said desperately. We were having a legitimate discussion about important topics. There was nothing legitimate about this, Jeremy said firmly. This was an ambush, pure and simple, and I will not sit here and be your victim. Marcus tried one last time to salvage his dignity. You are just running away because you could not handle the heat. Jeremy turned to him with a look of pure disdain. The heat? Is that what you call it? I have handled plenty of heat in my career. Real heat. From real journalists asking real questions. What I will not handle is being disrespected by people who think that being mean is the same thing as being clever. Sarah had gone very quiet, clearly realizing that this had gone too far. Lorraine made one final attempt to keep Jeremy on stage. If you walk out now, you will never be invited back. Jeremy paused at that, then smiled. It was not a warm smile. Is that supposed to be a threat? Because honestly, Lorraine, after today, I would not come back if you paid me. I have too much respect for myself to subject myself to this kind of treatment again. You are being ridiculous, Lorraine said, but her voice had lost all its authority. No, Jeremy said calmly. What is ridiculous is that you thought this was acceptable. What is ridiculous is that you thought you could invite someone onto your show and treat them like garbage and face no consequences. What is ridiculous is that you somehow believed this would make you look good. He took a step toward the exit, then turned back one more time. You know what the sad thing is? Jeremy said quietly, his voice carrying clearly across the studio. I actually respect what you have built here. I respect your career. I respect what you have accomplished. But this is beneath you. This is beneath all of you. Marcus looked like he wanted to say something, but could not find the words. You had a chance to have a real conversation, Jeremy continued. You had a chance to actually engage with ideas instead of just attacking the person presenting them. But you chose cheap shots over substance. You chose cruelty over curiosity. And that says far more about you than it ever could about me. Lorraine's face had gone from red to pale. For the first time since the interview started, she seemed genuinely shaken. Jeremy, she started, but he held up his hand. No, he said firmly. You do not get to smooth this over now. You do not get to pretend that this was all just a misunderstanding. You knew exactly what you were doing. You all did. He looked at each of them in turn. Marcus could not meet his eyes. Sarah was staring at her hands. Only Lorraine maintained eye contact, but even her confidence had crumbled. I hope it was worth it, Jeremy said. I hope whatever you were trying to achieve here was worth burning this bridge. Because make no mistake, this is burned. Completely. The studio was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether to applaud or stay silent. Jeremy straightened his jacket and turned toward the door. Thank you for having me, he said, the irony heavy in his voice. It has been educational. As he walked toward the exit, Lorraine finally found her voice again. Jeremy, wait! He stopped, but did not turn around. I think we may have gotten a bit carried away, Lorraine said, her voice smaller than before. Jeremy looked back over his shoulder. A bit carried away? Is that what you are calling this? Not an ambush? Not a setup? Not a deliberate attempt to make me look foolish? Just got a bit carried away? We were just trying to have a robust discussion, Lorraine said weakly. Robust discussion, Jeremy repeated. Is that the phrase you are going to use when people ask you about this? When the clips go viral and people start questioning your methods? You were just having a robust discussion? He shook his head slowly. The thing is, Lorraine, I have been in robust discussions. I have debated with engineers, with scientists, with policymakers. And you know what those debates had that this did not? Respect. Even when we disagreed, even when things got heated, there was an underlying respect for the other person's intelligence and expertise. I do respect you, Lorraine said, but even she sounded unsure. No, Jeremy said, you do not, because if you respected me, you would not have set me up like this. If you respected me, You would not have let your panelists attack me without pushing back. If you respected me, Ina sir, you would have been interested in what I actually think instead of the caricature you created in your head. Marcus finally spoke up, his voice defensive. We did not create any caricature. Jeremy turned to face him fully. Did you not? Because from the moment I sat down, you had already decided who I was and what I represented. You did not listen to a single thing I said. You just waited for your turn to deliver your pre-planned insults. They were not insults, Marcus protested weakly. What would you call them then? Jeremy challenged. Constructive criticism? Friendly banter? Because from where I was sitting, they felt an awful lot like insults. Sarah finally looked up. Maybe we could have phrased things better. Maybe, Jeremy said, his eyebrows raised. Maybe you could have phrased things better? You told me I was making myself look foolish. How exactly would you phrase that better? Sarah had no answer. Jeremy turned back to Lorraine. This is your show. You set the tone. You allowed this to happen. And that tells me everything I need to know about how little you value your guests. That is not fair, Lorraine said. We value all our guests. Really? Jeremy said. Because I have never felt less valued in my entire career. And I have been on some pretty terrible shows. Believe me. Lorraine's face flushed deeper. Maybe if you had engaged properly instead of getting defensive at every question, this would have gone differently. Engaged properly? Jeremy's voice rose. I tried to engage. I tried to explain my perspective. But every single time I opened my mouth, one of you three interrupted me with another insult or another accusation. How exactly was I supposed to engage under those circumstances? You could have tried harder, Marcus muttered. Tried harder? Jeremy turned on him. I should not have to try hard to be treated with basic human decency. That should be the baseline. That should be the starting point. But apparently on this show, even that is too much to ask. Sarah looked down at her notes, clearly uncomfortable. Maybe we all got a bit heated. A bit heated, Jeremy said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. That's one way to describe what just happened. Another way would be to call it what it really was. A coordinated attack designed to humiliate me for entertainment value. He took one more look around the studio, at the cameras still rolling, at the audience still sitting in uncomfortable silence, at the three people on the panel who had created this mess. You know what? Jeremy said finally. I am done. I am done trying to explain myself to people who have no interest in listening. I am done being treated like a villain for having opinions that differ from yours. And I am most definitely done with this show. You are walking away from your audience, Lorraine said, trying one last tactic. Jeremy smiled sadly. No, Lorraine, I am walking away from you. There is a difference. My audience will follow me wherever I go because they actually respect what I have to say. But you just lost any credibility you had. With that, Jeremy Clarkson turned and walked straight out of the studio, leaving behind three panelists who suddenly realized they had pushed things way too far, an audience that did not know whether to clap or cry, and a television moment that would be replayed and analyzed for years to come. The cameras kept rolling as Lorraine tried desperately to regain control of her show, but everyone watching knew the truth. She had not just lost a guest. She had lost the entire narrative. What was supposed to be her moment of triumph had turned into a complete disaster, all because she forgot the most basic rule of television. Treat your guests with respect, or they will walk away. And Jeremy Clarkson had just walked away, taking his dignity and his audience with him.